And thank you for the story of the dolphin. You know, I've been gone for a month. Some of you missed me. It was wonderful. But one of the things I have to tell you is we had this awful, part of the month that I was gone, I go to school in San Diego, and I had the grueling experience of having to spend 10 days on the beach outside of San Diego. Somebody's got to do that stuff. And as part of that, we were staying in a condominium in Pacific Beach, and just off and we had this big window that went out, it was really awful. But there was a school of dolphins out there. I know, just to make it worse. So thank you, Arvel, for the dolphin story. It takes me right back to that beautiful balcony. We'll start talking more about that a little bit later. So it's good to be here. I would say it's good to be back, but there is no back because we aren't there anymore and never will be again. And of course, that's true with a lot of life, isn't it? That really change. All month we have to talk about change. It's a good thing. It's a really good thing. It is a very good thing, honestly it is. So imagine if it didn't. Imagine if we didn't. Could we spend the rest of our lives in this church, in this room, doing what we're doing right here? No. Because what's our purpose as a church being in this community? To grow. And why? I mean, growth is a process. That's not a purpose. Why? Can you imagine what we can become? Wouldn't it be wonderful if everyone in this valley knew what you know? Is that a reasonable purpose? Absolutely, it is. So we're going to move into a talk about purpose because that's what I was told to talk about. So that's what I'm doing. The Bushmen in the Kalahari Desert talk about two hungers. There is the great hunger and there is the little hunger. The little hunger wants food for the belly, but the great hunger, the greatest hunger of all, is the hunger for meaning. There's ultimately only one thing that makes human beings profoundly and deeply bitter, and that is having thrust upon them a life without purpose. There's nothing wrong in searching for happiness, but far more comfort to the soul is something greater than happiness or unhappiness, and that is meaning. Because meaning transfigures all. Once what you are doing has for you meaning, it's irrelevant whether you're happy or unhappy. You are content. You're not alone in your spirit, and you belong. Powerful words. Life must have meaning, or it is not worth moving into the day. And yet, for many of us, meaning is a little hard to come by. So we're going to talk about that today as part of the very last chapter in this lovely little book by Edwin Gaines. Some of you've got it. We've talked about it for a month now. We talked about it, and the final chapter in this is seeking our divine purpose in life. So just to recap, it's been a process. The first week we talked about tithing. The second week we talked about goal setting. The third week we talked about forgiveness. And these are some loaded words, aren't they? And today we're talking about purpose. Okay. So I don't know which ones are most loaded, but I think for many of us, the most loaded one is tithing. That's a word that frightens us. But really, what she's talking about is not so much just tithing, which is giving your money to your source, whatever that is, but it's a process of being consistent about something and having faith and trust in it. Okay? So it's about whatever it is you do, you're doing it consciously, and you're doing it for a reason. Okay? So tithing is part of it, but part of it is also the things that we do every day. Getting up and going to work. Making sure that you eat good food. Paying your bills on time. Those things that we do with kind of routinely and consciously aware of what's going on. Okay? That's the beauty of that particular step, is because whether it's paying tithing or whether it's getting up in the morning and going to work or whether it's deciding, like Marty did, bless his heart, to crawl for 5 miles or however far you crawled. You know, setting something in your mind and saying, this I will do consistently every day, and putting your faith and trust in that and then doing it. That is the first step. Once you've got that under control and you kind of have this control going on in your life that surrounds that, then you raise your eyes a little bit and say, okay, now, what's my next step? Okay? What am I here to do next? What is mine to do in this next step? And that is also part of that same process, and that's part of goal setting. So that's a part of allowing change to begin to happen, isn't it? It's a part of allowing things to move forward just a little and saying to yourself, what is it that I want? Another hard question to answer. What do I want? Every time you ask that question, it gets a different answer, but it's an important answer. And I know people who never ask the question. So ask that question, and then allow that to turn into a goal that then essentially and eventually will become one of your routine things that you do. That's the process of getting to your purpose. The third step then, another loaded word for many of us, is forgiveness. And it's not really just about forgiveness, is it? It's about letting go. It's about stopping what we've always done and turning into a new place and surrendering to the greater possibility. And as part of surrendering to that greater possibility, we do have to let go of what's happened in the past. And part of what has happened in the past is things that we need to forgive. So it's a very big process. Do you see the stairway that we're climbing here? So, and then finally, the last one is to ask yourself, why am I here on this planet? What am I here to do? What is mine to do? Big question. How many of you sat and owned for hours and hours and not gotten an answer to that question? Because we don't get the answer to that question in that way, do we? How do you get an answer to that question? Well, I'm going to tell you. Because I have the answer. Actually, I don't have the answer, but a fella named Viktor Frankl had the answer. You may remember him. He was a Jewish psychiatrist in Germany during World War II, and he spent the war in prison camps, primarily Auschwitz, but he went around to some of the others. And he managed not only to live through the experience, but he also managed, when he got out, to write a wonderful, wonderful book called Man's Search for Meaning. If you have not read it, it's a must-read. Okay, it's a powerful, powerful story. Part of it is his story of being in these camps and what he learned there, and what he learned about giving life meaning. We'll talk about that a lot. Along the way, what he says, the meaning of life always changes. Have you found that to be true? I can remember when I was in my 20s and 30s, the meaning of my life was to raise my children. My purpose in being was to be the mom. That may be true for some of you. And after they moved away, then my life had to find a new meaning. And sometimes, I know for some people, that moving from one place to another place, for a little time in there, you lack a purpose. Has that happened to anyone? And then it's important to find another purpose. In fact, it's probably a good idea to recognize when one era is coming to an end before it ends, so that you can move into a different place. Okay, so the first part of that part of my life, my purpose was, my meaning was in my relationship with my children, with my family. When they went away and my life changed, then I sought new meaning, and I found the purpose of my life then in teaching. And then fairly recently, as you probably know, or you may not know, but I got knocked sideways, and now I'm doing a whole different thing, and we'll talk about that. Anyway, he says, Frankl says, the meaning of life always changes, but it never ceases to be. And he said we can discover the meaning of life in 3 different ways. This is important, write it down, okay? By creating a work or doing a deed, by experiencing something or encountering someone, and by the attitude we take toward unavoidable suffering. It's interesting things. The first one, by creating a work or doing a deed. The people that we know that are feeding their purpose in that way, by creating a work or doing a deed, the people that come to my mind immediately are teachers, school teachers. Yeah? Because their purpose is to do what? to fill a need, to create something new, to do a good work, to do a new work. And that's kind of what we're doing here, what Reverend Marty is doing here, by creating this new space and building this church. That is his purpose, and he's doing it by creating a work or doing a deed. By experiencing something or encountering someone. Who comes to my mind about that is Martin Luther King or Gandhi. Both of them found themselves doing the work that they do. Gandhi was a lawyer. Martin Luther King was a minister. And encountering something that they felt was not right in the world. For Gandhi, it was looking around himself and seeing that there was an inequity in India. The natives in India were not being treated in what he thought was the right way. And he jumped into being involved in that because he had encountered something that he did not think was right. You can say the same thing of Martin Luther King. You can say the same thing of Mother Teresa. She did not go to India herself deliberately. She was sent. She didn't say, I want to go feed those hungry people. She did not. But when she got there, she discovered a need and she filled it. Okay? By the attitude we take toward unavoidable suffering. Let's think about Nelson Mandela, who knew he wanted to free the people in South Africa, his people in South Africa. And in the process of wanting to do that, he had to spend how many years in prison? Yes. Ostensibly suffering. But if you think about it, if you're doing what you want to do, then maybe it isn't really suffering. Maybe it just looks that way to other people, if that makes sense. Anyway, those are the three ways. So that's all you need to know. Bye. No. The other thing that Viktor Frankl says is that there are two kinds of meaning, and I love this piece. Because when we go back to what we talked about a few minutes ago, the first two steps of climbing this ladder we're climbing are about changing stuff in our lives, about paying the tithing and doing the dishes and all of the stuff that we do. Does that make sense? The last two are all about being, about becoming more than we are, and about seeking a higher goal. The first two, he says, we can find purpose in everything that we do and should. Okay? So every little thing, every piece of your day, if you're doing anything, you need to find the reason that you're doing that, and that is one kind of purpose, if that makes sense. For example, I hate to wash dishes. I'm not big on washing dishes. But I do it anyway, even though it's something I don't like to do. Why? Because I love to have a clean kitchen. So when I do dishes, it's not about washing dishes, it's about having a clean kitchen. That's my purpose in doing this work. So I'm not big on paying bills. I do it because I like a roof over my head and all of this stuff that happens with that. Do you see what I'm saying? That there needs to be purpose in everything that you do, and that's one kind of a purpose, and it's an important kind of purpose. And if you find yourself doing things and you can't answer the question, why am I doing this? Don't do it. You know, it's important that's important to say, because so many of us do things that we think we're supposed to do. Yeah. I'm supposed to work at this job because that's what I do, and I've worked there forever, and I don't like it very much, but it's what I have to do because I have to stay here until I retire. I did that. Dumb. When you've got things in your life that you're doing that don't feed your soul, don't do them. If you can find a reason to do them, that's cool. If you can't find a reason to do them, find a way around it. Don't do them. That's important, okay? So, find purpose in the little things that you do, in the everyday things that you do. And as you do that, and you start on this path of doing the tithing or washing the dishes, and then adding a little bit to that and saying that my goal in this direction is that I want to finish school or whatever it is you do, whatever it is for you, you know. Ask yourself why that too. Good, because that kind of purpose is important. Once you've got those things under control and you've got a good background there, then is when you can turn to this other place and say, okay, I'm ready now to find this other thing and to release that which no longer serves me. And that's the next half. That's finding the purpose and why we're on this planet at this time. You see the relationship? It's a step up. It's also interesting that you have to start the other direction, because you've got to know where you're going before you start on the trip, don't you? I mean, I could get in the car and go on vacation, but it would be nice to know which road to get on. So you kind of have to know ahead of time where it is you think you want to, where it is you think you want to go. And we have the answer to that one for you too. It's called visioning. I know you've heard of it. If you haven't worked with it at all, we work with it sometimes. We teach a class occasionally called Visioning. There's a fabulous book by Michael Beckwith called Life Visioning. It's worth buying. But what visioning starts with is that end step. The first question when you do visioning is, what is my highest purpose? The way that we say it is, what is the divine's highest purpose for my life? We know that right off the bat, and then we listen. And what comes up is what comes up, and it takes all kinds of forms. Once we've got that piece in our mind, then the next step is, what must I release? What do I need to let go of to have that happen? Okay? And the third step is, what must I embrace? The goal part. How do I get from here to there? You see, it's a backward process, but it's the same process. And so you see it both directions. And it's a day-to-day kind of work. So. Now living it. Once you know what it is, whether it's the little things or the big things, how do you do it every day? You know? When we walk out of here on Sunday, when I walk out of here on Sunday, I feel so good. Yeah? And it's wonderful. It's a great feeling in my heart, and I know that everything is right in the world, and it's all of that stuff, and then I get on the freeway. And what happens to that divine thing is that we get into the routine. And it doesn't matter whether it's the freeway or whether it's Monday morning or whatever it is for you. It's easy to be a guru when you're on top of the mountain. It's easy to be where we are when we're together in this room. And then what happens is we walk into the rest of the world, and really the work is to take this there. Oh, yeah. And is that an easy thing to do? Well, it is if you say it is. It is if you say it is. All you've got to do is do this baby step thing that we've been doing, just like paying the tithing. Yes, this is what I do, and this is how I live in the world. And people don't like that. They don't have to. They don't have to like it. Nobody has to like who I am and what I do. I learned that the hard way. Henry David Thoreau says, in Walden, says, I learned this at least by my experiment, that if one advances confidently in the direction of his dreams and endeavors to live the life which he has imagined, he will meet with a success unexpected in common hours. Yeah. Advance confidently in the direction of your dreams and endeavor to live the life which you imagine. Take this out onto the street with you. When you get on the freeway on the way home and somebody cuts you off, say, bless you. And mean it. Yeah, I'm serious. I'm serious. I'm serious. So, in your little program today, this is kind of a cool process. I lost this piece of paper. I lose that piece of paper all the time. There's a little half-size sheet in there that'll give you some ideas about how to do this. There it is. 2 weeks of self-care and integrity. It's not that I don't see well, it's that my arms are too short. So I tried this for a little while. This is in the back of Edwin Gaines' book, in the last chapter of Edwin Gaines' book. And it's a process. It's sort of a daily routine that's going to help you to take care of yourself on the path. Because one thing that's really important to do along the way is to enjoy doing it and have fun doing it and to take care of yourself on the way. This should not be about suffering, and it should not be about striving. So, on the first day, the first word is strive. Who knew? Strive for order. Take one thing in your life and make it orderly. Okay? Clean a closet. Mop off the kitchen counter. Whatever you've got to do, one thing today. Strive for order. Tomorrow, take time for solitude. Spend an hour. I tell this to my students because I teach classes someplace else. And on last Wednesday, their homework was spend 4 hours doing nothing. Oh my God, you thought I'd have told them to go shoot themselves. That's a challenge. It's a challenge. Think about it. What would you do for nothing for 4 hours? How tough would that be? How delightful it is when you wake up and decide that you can. That was fun. That was a fun day. So it got to be Memorial Day weekend, and on Sunday, my job was to laugh. And I like that one. So I did it Monday, too. Before I did to the remain calm thing, which I kind of had to do after the mess that we created over the week. Anyway, this is fun, okay? Try it for a little while and give yourself the opportunity to kind of grow into, kind of be in your joy around this. It's really what is cool. That's really what is cool. So there you go. Try that. See what you think. So here I was in California, hanging out in this awful place. And I told you about our beautiful place that we were in. And I was sharing this space with some friends of mine who were also students at the school. Two of them you know. One of them is Jeff Masakatani, because he spoke here a couple of months ago. And the other one you may remember is Claire Summerhill. She was a member of our church, and then she bailed out and went to Vegas. And they go to church with me, or they go to school with me. And we're standing at the railing in this beautiful condo, looking out over the ocean and watching the dolphins. And I'm feeling the way that we feel sometimes when we leave church, just at such peace in what I'm doing and such a full feeling about this work and about life in general. It was a good feeling. And then I thought about coming home. And I remembered some words by Howard Thurman, and I want to share them with you as we give this up. Howard Thurman, you may or may not know, was a cohort of Martin Luther King's and was one of his ministerial friends. He writes, "Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve. In the quietness of this place, surrounded by the all-pervading presence of God, my heart whispers, keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve, that in fair weather or in foul, in good or in tempests, in the days when the darkness and the foe are nameless or familiar, I may not forget that to which my life is committed. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve." Keep fresh before you the moments of your high resolve, once you know who you are and where you're going and what you want. Keep that fresh before you. And make it fun. Because if it's not fun, it's not worth doing. Let's pray. As we move together into this sense of joy and love and wonder that is who we are, we see that which we are to become. And we know that the real source of all good and our real purpose for being on this planet is simply love, simply joy, simply peace. And as we know that and we become aware of that and we move into that place in our bodies and in our souls, we see before us that high resolve, that who we are to become as individuals, that who we are to become as a center, that who we are to become as humans in the world. And we see the joy and laughter and love that simply comes from being easily and effortlessly who you are, who I am. And nothing more than that is needed ever. So with this sense of joy and peace and love and wonder, together we pledge to that higher purpose, to bring this word as ourselves into this greater world. We are making a change. The world would never be the same because you are here, because I am here. We recognize our own paths to the divine. We recognize our own purpose on the planet, and we recognize too that each one of us here, in fact, each one of us in the world, has a slightly different path, and that all paths lead to the divine. And so we bless all paths, including our own. And we move with love into this larger knowing that life is good, that we are blessed, and we are a blessing. As together we say, and so it is.